to the journey ahead. So one thing I have learned is, as Mark said to you, I don't like messy. I have little patience for that. And so I've asked, sometimes things are on my calendar, but it's just where I'm supposed to be and the time. And so I've started asking, okay, what is this? And what do you want me to say? And what do you want me to emphasize? I'm the newbie, so I need some prompts for, you may remember that, you're writing prompts since you're all graduates. And so I was trying to get a prompt, and I couldn't get much. So I'm going to do a little bit. The most I got was, well, tell something of your story and then questions and answers. So I will try just the abbreviated version of something that what helps to form how I think about this work and how I've understood God to be calling. And then we'll have some opportunity for some questions, and I'm happy to receive softballs or hardballs. I don't care. As Mark mentioned, that I am blessed to have been raised in a Christian home. And my parents, of blessed memory, prepared both my brother and me to be able to say yes to the Lord for ministries of vocation. And he's a hospice chaplain and a pastor in St. Louis, and I'm here. But part of my journey, and I reframed it today because I guess some people who were a part of the worship experience were asking where my fingerprints on some of the worship design, and it was. And so I used to talk about ministry's vocation beginning as an urban missionary, but it wasn't. I was a church musician, and so I was. So that's where I got started. I also was a church custodian, but I'm not sure if that's ministry's vocation or ministry for economics. So I started there, and that stays with me, and so that's one reason why one of the song I wanted to center was "Give Me a Clean Heart," and I knew Margaret Pleasant Thoreau was in Los Angeles, and when Jimmy Abington said, "Oh, I have her number," because I had her number too, but I didn't know her well enough to call her for this. But that just meant something to me. So I guess you almost have to know something about Black gospel music to really appreciate Margaret Thoreau. And if you don't know that, whatever your music tradition is, whoever are icons, a living icon, that's what this was. And so that the worship design, so the idea was, first and foremost, this is a service of worship of God. And as a part of it, we'll do the other academic stuff. But we'll gather together to make ourselves available to hear from God. And so that is a part of the journey. So I'm already editing my story. I'm 21 days in, and I'm changing the story. But I've had privilege of being an urban missionary, a congregational pastor, a denominational staffer, theological educator, a global mission executive, theological educational administrator, and now whatever a president of a seminary is. I thought I knew until I was listening to Dr. Labberton. And he expressed such exuberance of gifting me unfinished work. It's almost like he's just a little bit letting you know, you really don't know what you got. Yeah, and that's all right, because what I do know is God's got me.
Amen. Amen. Say that.
So that's a part of it. So that's been a part of my journey, and I'm excited to be here. There are just tremendous assets in the Fuller verse. Just tremendous assets. And I'll say to you as alumni, because you're interested and you have invested interest, one of the things that we'll be working on is landscaping a little more this wonderful garden that we have. I was in Germany at the Berlin Wall, and if you've been there, there's a Chapel of Reconciliation, and just in the back of the Chapel of Reconciliation is a garden, and the garden is cared for by some large number of people from multiple countries, all of whom had experiences with the war. And so the garden becomes a place for people who have different stories, but some shared experience, to in a neutral space, a safe space, to develop relationships, to share stories, and that helps to bring healing. So in that sense, it's a really beautiful garden, but it's not curated in an organized way. So it's designed that however you're going to do the garden is the way you do the garden, and that is a beautiful thing. And so we have beautiful things, but for the next few years, part of what we're going to be doing is tending to the garden in a way that helps us to make sure we just had all this rain, but unless you have the garden tilled right, you can't take full advantage of the rain for the irrigation, so that all of the garden continues to be enriched, and it can maximize its care for each other, so that the multiple plants and etc. So one of the things that we'll be seeking to discern is, for as we go forward, and this is not a criticism of previous years, but what it's saying is, as we go forward, we have all of this richness that has grown up. Now, how do we make sure that we tend to it so that it can sustain itself and it can feed the most people in the healthiest way? So generally, that is one metaphor of talking about how do we tend to this garden so that we maximize its growth and its flourishing, so that it can feed all who want to come and eat here.
Amen.
And so that's a part of what we'll be working on, and we'll be counting on you. We'll be counting on your prayers and your participation in two ways. And I don't mind asking. And so we'll be asking you to recommend students take a look at Fuller, because it's demonstrated that both pastors and alums are among the most influential people in people making a decision of where they're going. And so we need you to encourage people to take a look at Fuller. Just take a look. Because I'm convinced that if they take a look, we'll be a competitive institution. Because we have a lot of assets. And now, if people want to study where everybody thinks alike and looks alike and dresses alike, Fuller is probably not for them. And that's fine. That's fine. People need to go where they can flourish. But if they want to be in a class where they can study with somebody from Cairo and Kenya and Kentucky, I mean, where else can you do that?
Right.
And if you want to study with people who bring with them the kinds of rich backgrounds and experiences that our faculty do, where else can you get this kind of experience? So we need you to encourage people to take a look at Fuller, take a serious look at us. And then we also need you to remember us in your gifts.
Mm-hmm.
We need you to invest so that you can help make possible for others what you were blessed with. And everybody is not a high wealth giver, but if all of us do something, then God takes that something and does more than we can imagine. And so you will be asked. I'm a pastor at a free church tradition. So we're gonna have an offering. Not tonight. We'll let you off tonight. But we solicit your prayers and your participation in encouraging people to take a look and to remember us as the Lord inspires you to do. So, what do you want to ask?